Book of Dust, Tale 1, The Road to Bakti. Chapter 2, The Road East. Dawn came without ceremony. No trumpet of light broke the horizon, no warmth followed the rising sun. The sky paled from black to a dull, ashen grey, and the wind that moved across the yard carried neither comfort nor promise. Arvin was awake before it. He stood beside the wagon as Halvek checked the harness, the leather stiff with the cold of night. The younger guard, Thorne, yawned openly as he tightened the last of the bindings, though his eyes flicked often toward the road beyond the city. Meduli lay quiet behind them, too quiet. "Sleep?" Halvek asked, without looking up. "Enough," Arvin replied. Halvek grunted. "More than most get here." No one spoke of the night. Nothing had happened, and yet something lingered, a faint unease, like a thought half-formed and unwilling to fade. The horses felt it too. They stamped more than usual, tossing their heads as if catching scent of something distant and unwelcome. Arvin took note of it, but he said nothing. "Move," he said instead. They left Meduli as men always did, without farewell. The road stretched ahead in a pale line of dust and stone, cutting through scrubland that bore the scars of long use. Here and there low shrubs clung stubbornly to the earth, their leaves grey with grit. Beyond them the land rolled outward in shallow rises, broken only by the occasional jut of rock or twisted tree. At first the journey held no trouble, only the steady rhythm of wheels and hooves. Leather creaked, metal shifted. The wind whispered low across the ground. Time passed. Then something changed. It came not as a sound nor as a sight, but as an absence. The birds were gone. Arvin noticed it first. He slowed slightly, his gaze lifting toward the sky. Nothing wheeled above them. No cry cut the air. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Thorne frowned. "Hear what?" "Exactly." Halvek's hand drifted closer to the hilt at his side. "Could be nothing," he said. "Could be," Arvin agreed. They continued. A mile passed, then another, and the signs began. A broken branch, not fallen but snapped. Tracks along the edge of the road, half erased but too large for fox or hound. A patch of earth where something had been dragged, and then simply stopped. Thorne swallowed. "Bandits?" he asked. "Bandits leave what they take," Halvek replied, "or what they can't carry." Arvin said nothing. He was watching the horizon. It happened quickly, too quickly for warning. A shape broke from the scrub to their left, a blur of motion and muscle, and the world snapped from stillness into violence. The creature hit the lead horse with a force that drove it sideways, teeth flashing, claws tearing for purchase. The horse screamed, a high, terrible sound, and reared, nearly overturning the wagon. "Down!" Halvek roared. Arvin was already moving. The attacker circled with terrifying speed, low to the ground, its form lean but powerful, fur matted in places, its eyes bright with a cold, focused hunger. Not a beast gone wild, a hunter. Riding it, barely more than a shadow above its shoulders, was the Alvarin. He loosed an arrow before the wagon had fully stopped. It struck Thorne high in the shoulder, spinning him back with a cry. "Shields!" Halvek barked, though there was little time to form one. Another arrow flew, this one meant for Arvin, but the wagon lurched as the wounded horse staggered, throwing off her aim. The shaft split the wood beside him instead. She did not curse. She did not shout. She simply drew again. Efficient. Certain. Arvin reached for his blade, but even as he did, he knew they were already behind the moment. The Thordog lunged again, jaws wide, aiming now for the second horse. If it fell, they would not outrun anything. Then something else moved, not from the road, not from the wagon, from beyond. A blur of dark form and sudden violence crashed into the Thordog from the side, striking with a force that turned the beast mid-lunge and drove it hard into the dirt. The Elvarin twisted with it, fast, impossibly fast, rolling clear even as the two massive bodies collided. She came up on one knee, bow already rising. But the Thursa was faster. He was already there. No shout announced him. No warning preceded him. One moment he was not. The next he was within reach. His arm came down in a brutal arc, metal catching the rising bough and tearing it from her grip before she could loose. She moved to draw a blade. Too late! He seized her by the throat, lifting her clear from the ground as though she weighed nothing at all. For a heartbeat she struggled, quick, precise, lethal even in desperation, her free hand driving a short blade toward the gap beneath his arm. The blade struck, turned, did not bite deep enough. The Thursa tightened his grip. There was a sharp final crack. He let her fall. No ceremony, no acknowledgement. The Thordog staggered to its feet, dazed but not broken. It snarled, low and savage, and lunged once more. The Thursa met it head-on. Steel flashed, not clean, not elegant, brutal. He took the beast's charge and drove his weapon deep into its chest at close range, letting its own momentum carry it forward, onto the blade. It writhed, snapping, claws raking, but the wound was mortal. It collapsed in a heavy, choking heap. Silence followed, sudden, absolute. Only the ragged breathing of the horses and Terrence's low groan broke it. Arwen stood still, blade in hand, though he had not struck a single blow. The Thursa wrenched his weapon free from the fallen beast. Blood ran dark along the edge. He did not clean it. Instead he turned. His gaze passed over Arwen, Helvek, the wagon, the wounded man, measuring, not concerned. Then he stepped to the Alvarin's body. He crouched, searching with deliberate efficiency, and from within her cloak drew a small, marked token, metal, etched, unmistakable in purpose. A bounty. He closed his hand around it, stood. For a moment no one spoke. Then Arwen did. "You were hunting her." The Thursa looked at him. A pause. "Aye." His voice was low, rough, used little. "Then you have your price." Another pause. The Thursa glanced once toward the east, the direction of Bakti. "Aye." Nothing more. He moved past them then, as he had in the tavern, without request, without hesitation, and took to the road, not waiting, not asking. Helvek exhaled slowly. "We follow him," Terrin managed them through clenched teeth. Arwen watched the retreating figure, the road ahead, the land beyond. Then he sheathed his blade. "We go to Bakti," he said. The Thursa did not look back, but he did not leave the road, and neither did they. Once the token was taken and the dead left where they fell, he crossed to where his horse waited beyond the rise, a broad, dark beast that watched the carnage without agitation, as if such scenes were no rarity to it. He mounted in a single motion, no flourish, no wasted effort. Then he turned the animal eastward and began to ride. Arwen watched him go for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Move." Helvek helped Terren back onto the wagon bench, binding the wound tighter with a strip torn from his own sleeve. The young man's face had gone pale beneath the dust, though he clenched his jaw against the pain. "I'm fine," he muttered. "You're not," Helvek replied, "but You'll live if you don't do anything foolish. Thorne gave a weak snort. Bit late for that. The wagon lurched forward. They followed. The road stretched long beneath the rising sun, and the land began to change as Meduli fell behind them. The ground grew harder, more brittle. Patches of scrub gave way to stretches of cracked earth and pale sand, broken by low ridges of stone that jutted like the bones of something long buried. The wind came dry now, carrying heat without comfort, and it whispered endlessly across the open land. The Meduli badlands, old places, forgotten places. Arven urged his horse forward until he drew alongside the Thursar. For a time he said nothing. The Thursar did not look at him. You made quick work of her, Arven said at last. No response. Arven studied him briefly, then continued. How long were you tracking? The Thursar shifted slightly in the saddle, his gaze still fixed ahead. Long enough, he said. His voice carried easily in the open air, low, steady, without strain. She moved often, knew the land, used the beasts to do her hunting for her. Arven nodded once. The tower dogs. A faint sound came from the Thursar, not quite agreement, not quite amusement. She didn't tame them, he said. She learned how not to die near them. That's enough. He adjusted his grip on the reins. Started with what she left behind. Blood, broken gear, tracks where there shouldn't be any. A pause. She was not careful, just fast. And that was enough. For most, the Thursar said. Arven glanced at him. And for you? Now the Thursar looked at him, briefly. Speed runs out, he said. Everyone leaves something behind. That was all. Behind them, Thorne shifted in the wagon seat, wincing as the movement pulled at his shoulder. I suppose, he called forward, I should thank you. The Thursar did not turn. For what? He asked. For... Thorne gestured vaguely with his uninjured arm. For not letting that thing finish us. The Thursar's head tilted slightly. You caught her, he said. I finished it. A beat passed. Should be thanking you. There was the faintest trace of something then. Not warmth, not quite, but something closer to a dry edge of humour. Her bloodlust would have kept me walking longer. Thorne let out a short, uneasy laugh. Glad we could be of service, he muttered. Though his eyes lingered a moment on the dead stretch of road behind them, as if imagining how differently it might have ended. The sun climbed, the heat followed. By midday the land had flattened into long, rolling stretches of dust and pale grass, broken here and there by scattered ruins, low stone remnants half swallowed by the earth, their shapes worn smooth by time and wind. No one spoke of them. No one knew what they had been. Arven did, or thought he did. There's water ahead, he said after a time. A pair of lakes, not far off the road. The Thursar gave a small nod. Twin lakes, he said. You know them. I know of them. Arven glanced at him. Then you know we need the stop. The Thursar's gaze shifted toward the horizon. Aye, he said. Then, after a pause, but not for long. Something in his tone drew Halvek's attention. Why's that? The guard called. The Thursar did not answer at once. Instead he rode a little farther, then spoke, without turning. Something's taken to the ruins there, he said. Old stones. Broken place in the middle of the water. Arven's brow furrowed slightly. The altar. The Thursar nodded once. Altar of Zerthrall. The name settled over them like dust. Bandits, Halvek asked. No. That was all the Thursar said. They saw the lakes before they reached them. two broad stretches of still water set amid the dry land, their surfaces reflecting the pale sky above. But it was not the water that drew the eye. It was the centre. Rising from this larger lake stood a cluster of ancient stone, ruined walls and fractured pillars forming the remains of something once deliberate, now broken beyond memory. A bridge reached toward it, long, narrow, decayed. Its stones sagged in places, gaps visible even from a distance where sections had fallen away. And around it, fog, not thick, not impenetrable, but constant. It clung low to the water, curling and shifting without dispersing, as though the air itself refused to move it. Thorne stared. "That's not right," he said quietly. "No," Halvek agreed. "It's not." The Thursa slowed his horse. "Water's clean enough near the shore," he said. "Stay clear of the middle." Owen gave a short nod. "We make this quick." They worked without wasting time. Helvik helped Thorne down, guiding him carefully toward the water's edge. The young man knelt, teeth clenched as the wound was cleaned, the cloth pulled free and replaced with something tighter, cleaner. The horses drank. Arven moved along the wagon, checking bindings, adjusting what had shifted during the morning's chaos. But his eyes kept drifting. Toward the lake, toward the ruins. The fog did not move as it should. It lingered, watched. Halvek straightened slowly, his hand resting near his weapon. For a moment he said nothing. Then he glanced toward the bridge. Something, a shape, far off, moving, slow, unsteady. He narrowed his eyes. It could have been a trick of light, a trick of the shifting mist, or something else. He held the look a moment longer, then turned away. Thorne didn't need that, not today. "Up," he said instead. "We're not staying." They left the lakes behind without regret. No one spoke of the bridge. No one spoke of the shape. But the silence that followed them felt heavier than before. By late day, the land began to shift again. The road split ahead, 3 paths branching outward across the worn earth. The 3 ways. One turned south, fading toward distant jungle lands. One continued east into the land what men call Spider Valley, toward Bakti. The third back to whence they came. If they wished to turn away, no, this would be the time. Owen slowed. "How fares this junction?" he asked. The Thursa did not hesitate. "South road's quiet," he said. "Too quiet for trade. East road's worse." Owen's brow lifted slightly. "Worse how?" The Thursa glanced toward the distant tree line. "Things move there," he said. "Not always seen, not always heard." A pause. "People go missing closer to the forest now." Arven took that in, adjusted his grip on the reins. "Then we don't linger here either." "No," the Thursa agreed. "We don't." They took the eastern road, toward Bakti, toward the trees. And as the sun began its slow descent, the air shifted once more. Cooler now, heavier, carrying the scent of damp earth and growing things. The forest waited ahead, dark, patient, and before the light failed entirely, they reached it. The trees rose tall and close, their branches weaving together overhead to choke out what little sky remained. The road narrowed as it passed beneath them, the ground softening, the sound of wheels dulling into a muted grind. A stream cut across their path not far in, clear, cold, alive. The Thursa raised a hand. "Here!" He dismounted. "Water! Cover! We stop!" No one argued. They had come far. too far to push further blind into the dark. As Halvek helped Terran down once more and Arven began to make what preparations he could, the forest settled around them. Quiet, not empty, never empty, but quiet enough to make a man listen harder than he wished. The Thursa stood at the edge of the stream, watching the trees, not resting, not easing, waiting, as though he knew. The road had not finished with them yet. So the road east did not remain as it first appeared. What followed the leaving of Meduli was not trade alone, but blood and signs of things that did not move as beasts should. A hunter walked with them now, and the land ahead, stone, water, and forest, offered no promise of ease. What was seen upon the road was only the beginning. The rest of this account endures within the Book of Dust.